Hi, Bethany.
Hello, hi.
Good. So welcome. I know we need to just walk through the setup for the Azure codes. I have Joy Misheni. Hi, Joy, you're there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so we've already coordinated with Joy. She has the subscription allocated to her. So Joy, you can share your screen, then Bethany will take us through. Joy, I think we had practiced yesterday, but we need her guidance. So let's
okay.
What she tells do.
Can
Let's
you see my
just
screen?
start again afresh. Yeah, I think part of it was to be in incognito. So don't just share only your, kindly, don't just share only the, because we're not seeing the entire screen.
Okay.
We need to see which URL you've gone to. You're only sharing like, yeah, we need to see which URL you've loaded. A part of this is also going to be useful to the rest of the students.
Is that better?
That's better, yeah, super.
Okay.
All right, so let's wait for instructions. So Bethany, please help us now. Handing over to you.
Okay, sure. So you don't technically log into Azure. I shared a link with Irene. Let me share it. I don't have access to the chat. So maybe I can just, you can just type on the,
okay.
So the link is aka.ms. / Azure for Students. Yeah. No. The one that
Joy,
had
it's the same one I gave you with the number 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same one I gave you yesterday.
I'll need to access.
Sorry about the chat access.
No. aka.ms / Azure for Students, 4 being number 4.
You have it in the chat, Joy.
Okay, let me just.
Sorry, Bethany, for access on chat.
I also don't have access to the chat.
Joy, I sent it to you on your WhatsApp yesterday. That's what we used.
It's that link, the link on your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes.
Yeah, start free. So the account you're using is not an account that already has like the Azure for Students. When you log into your account, it should ideally not have been used before to access Azure. So you can just log into your Microsoft account.
Okay.
Say that again.
I'm saying you can log into your Microsoft account. So the account should not have been used before in Azure. So it can be, for me, I normally use my Gmail account as a Microsoft account. So any account that you have, you can log in and yeah, it will take you through to the homepage.
So to understand you clearly, we should not use our Azure, we should not use our university accounts.
If you're using your university accounts, you should have access to the, you should, I don't think you will need to use the codes, because I know USIU is already approved for Azure for Students. So yeah, for this, it's for those who don't have their school email accounts.
I think to
or
be,
if you want to use your personal
standard,
account.
To be standard, then we just ask people to register for not their normal user, not their normal university accounts, but to just have an account that's never been used on Azure, like a Gmail account.
Yeah.
Okay. So that instruction we hadn't been given. So Joy had used her USIU account. So I think it's something to note. So thank you for that. So Joy, when it comes to, just the setup.
Okay.
Yeah, so here that's where you now use the verification code.
So don't paste it for us to see. When it
Uh-huh.
gets to you pasting that, just stop sharing
Yeah.
your screen. Yeah, so that we don't have your code recorded.
Okay.
You can even probably even stop here. Just stop sharing because we've seen what you need to put in. So just stop sharing, complete. Yeah. I think then that's what the mistake we did, Bethany, then is we used our institutional accounts.
Yeah.
So I know
No
Joy
problem.
hadn't claimed. So Joy's account didn't even have an active subscription, but we never got to this page. So what she had, the page she had was the full two-factor authentication page, and after that we just went to the portal with the education subscriptions page.
Did it have any subscription?
No, she hadn't. She hadn't activated her.
Oh.
She hadn't activated her student starter. He didn't have any credit, but I think it's even good. To be honest, Bethany, I think it's good because we were worried that some students don't. We were worried that some students don't.
Email. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, that
this one
will
will
essentially,
yeah. This will help a lot. Then Joy, for us to track with you so that we see what happens after you advance from the page you were, kindly just share your screen so that we have an expectation of what that looks like. Huh? Okay. So it takes you to the education page.
Yeah. So you should have, you already received your credits. Yeah.
Oh, she has 79 out of 100.
I
Was
don't
it
know
already
why.
used? Tax. So you've already been taxed. Hey, that's a high tax.
That's tax.
This is, I'm just joking, but it's saying $79 is
That's
what is
I'm
available.
wondering. Yeah.
So
But
21 has gone.
But it seems you had already redeemed earlier on so it shows it's been redeemed on 12th January. So I'm not sure why.
Ooh,
Yeah,
it was not redeemed
I'm not sure why it's
because we
giving
just got
that.
yesterday. We just got them this week. So she's already in May.
I think
So
I'm
maybe
losing.
to
Yeah, I think I keep
running
losing you.
on
I'm not
this
sure.
account.
Can you hear me?
Oof, it's my internet. Yeah, I can hear
Oh.
you, Bethany.
Okay.
It's my
okay,
internet.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joy,
So
let's see your whole page. Let's see what resources could be running. And maybe we can see the cost details. Sorry, I could have even probably gone. You see, there's already stuff going on. There was
You can go to subscriptions, the Azure for Student subscriptions.
and could those resources still be running?
So the only way we can check is if we see under the subscription. So she can click on Azure for Students. And then we can see if there are any resources running. Yeah, there are some resources running.
That's why they're using it, huh?
Yeah.
So those are the ones, cognitive services. So she'll need to delete them.
Yeah.
You
can just go to resource groups on your
first place. Yeah.
On your left, there's resource groups and settings. Resource groups.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you can delete an entire resource group. Click on no, you have to open. You have to open it. You can only delete when it's open. There's that option of delete resource group. That is if you're not using it. So you can do that for those two resources that you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's good we record this. So I'm sure this will also be necessary for the others to know do so that they don't leave them running.
Yeah. And then you can also delete the other one.
Yeah. So Lorraine, what I'll do, I'm just gonna send you for this class so that you can email them just now as we start. And then at the end, we'll all do a walkthrough. Of, those are many. Must be a cognitive service hub. So, Lorraine, let me send you a group of codes so that everyone, by the end of this class, the people who are in this session will have them. Eh? Lorraine, you have their emails?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so let me send you. How many do you have on your list, Lorraine? So that I send you just enough?
Let me just check.
Okay. And then Bethany, kindly.
Yeah.
In terms of cost management, are
I
we able
have
to
an
set
article.
Yeah.
But I think it's supposed to be individually so they can set up alerts individually. I can share resources around that for them to set up alerts so that in case the alert should be 25%, 50, and
Yes.
75 to be able to
Yes.
see how the cost is going. So I can be able to share that.
Okay. Is it a lengthy
Yeah, I'll
process?
share.
Could we do one alert? Is it a very
I don't know.
process?
Can you try under monitoring, Joy? There's alerts under monitoring.
Mm.
Are you able to see that? Yeah.
Mm.
Click on alerts.
Should I create alert rule?
Yeah, create alert rule. No, this is, oh, sorry, this is per resource. Go back to Azure for Students.
You need to go to the top level.
Go on top, there's a breadcrumb, home, Azure for Students. Click on Azure for Students.
Mm.
Yeah, this is, yeah, now go to
Management.
alerts. Yeah, cost alerts. Yeah. Add on your top left.
Is it saying not supported? Oh, add. Okay.
Add.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The alert type should be, do I remember? No. So you'll have to go to budgets.
Oh, so she has to start with a budget.
Yeah,
It's
just
a
go to
budget
budgets.
alert,
Because I don't think you'll need an anomaly. Do you have, yeah, then add.
Mm.
It's been so long since I did this.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
We're so green, so don't worry. We're taking anything.
Yeah.
We're taking it all in.
This is much better. So you can create the budget name, and then it's technically 1 year. So from today till probably 2024, and then your budget should be, your budget is the amount you have. That's $100, but who you think it's 500? I mean $79. But just put $100 budget threshold.
Reset is yearly.
Yeah, annually. Since the budget is, the subscription is annual. Expiry 2025. Creation is okay.
I think it's the same January. But it's okay.
And then amount, you can put 100. So that means you have, okay, and then
Okay,
alert
next.
the actual, and then the percentage. So like you can have, if the actual amount is 50%, and then you have also 70% and stuff like
Let's
that.
do 25. Just do 25, then 50, then 75.
Yeah.
And actual group? Action?
Action group. So you can add your email under alert email recipients.
So So for each threshold, they need an email to keep alerting.
No, just one email.
Just okay.
Yeah, and then just one email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I
That's
think you can then create.
okay. Sorry, Bethany, just a question. We're
Yeah.
going to be doing labs on Entra. We're going to be doing labs on Defender, on Purview, like for the compliance.
Yeah.
Will there be restrictions? Like I can already tell you, the lab today we are meant to do is on Entra ID, then creating being able, first of all, to have a directory and then creating users and groups and assigning them different privileges and just testing that. Will there be a restriction on that? Will there be a restriction on that?
Unfortunately, I'm very green around security. Let me ask Jaylene. That is the best person to reach out to.
Okay.
She can update, but then the other option would be under Azure for Students. I think you can be able to see the services the students are able to have access to.
Yes.
Azure for Students. The link that you just the link that we used. So instead of going to like create the subscription, you just click on the link and then go to the free products and the services available. And you can be able to see what you are able to do, especially around security. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You've made it look so easy. Thank you so much.
No problem. I'll ask Jaylene around do you have like a curriculum of what you'll be covering around Azure?
Yes, we have a 12-week curriculum. It's with Irene.
Okay, sure.
Ideally, we're just so like for this group, we're going to cover SC 900.
Yeah.
That is the security, compliance, and identity fundamentals. Then we're also going to cover 204. 204 for this particular group is on just development work, software development and software security on the cloud.
Yeah. Okay. That's okay.
So we'll also, so even Joylene will be, so we've also asked for a guest list of people who will talk. So we'll discuss OWASP. So first of all, we'll discuss basically secure software development in terms of the fundamentals. We'll venture into OWASP Top 10 for web and OWASP Top 10 for API. Then we'll also deploy some app services on Azure web apps. We'll also see how to implement functions, the database side and container, but also more importantly, how to secure each of those and how to do monitoring.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask Jaylene and then I'll get back to you, or Irene will get back to you with like any restrictions that are there or anything that you might be wary of as you go in.
Yeah, and we'll use what we have. So basically, we'll make it work. So the subscriptions we have, we will make them work. In case we need to have some guidance or maybe where we are stuck, we can probably reach out.
Okay. The other options you can also check out is sandboxes in case there's like lab sandboxes on LAN for those.
Yes,
that would be also an easier route. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bethany. Thank you for your time. Asante sana. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day. Bye.
Same to you. Bye-bye. Great. So everyone, it's good news because we have the codes. So you'll be able to start doing the labs. Kindly, Lorraine, tell me how many they are so that as we continue.
17.
17, eh? So I'll give you 20. No, actually, let me just give you. So Joy Misheni has already been given. So please don't give her. Remember, she's on your list, eh? Hmm?
Yes. Wait, she's not Nima?
Joy.
Okay. So then you're 16. Joy Mishani.
You've seen her?
Yes, I have.
So that we can do that concurrently, let me just send you the codes just now. I'm multitasking. Oops. Okay. Something is not okay. Just a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You said 16, Lorraine.
16, so it's actually 15. I would like to use my USIU account.
No, you will have troubles. So you're also counted. So
Okay, then it's yes.
16, including you?
17 then.
17. Just the file I got was in a different format. Part of the issues I'm getting is that. Sorry. I was trying to do it quickly. Shortcuts are long cuts. So I'm just sending it to you. It might be a little bit of a manual process. So what you could also do kindly, Lorraine, indicate to me who you've allocated which. So you can probably give me a summary of who got what code.
Okay.
And we'll walk through the end. Once you confirm you've sent the email to all of them, now do a walkthrough, because it's important for them even to do their labs, their assignments. So so the column for expiration date, you can, they all have the same. What is the best way of me doing this? Sorry guys, it's just that we want to make sure you have the codes by the time we finish this session. I'll find a more efficient way of doing this. It's taking our time. So just check if you're able to say, check if you've been able to receive, and just let me know. So they include yours as well, eh?
Okay, it's loading.
So as we do that, as we wait for your confirmation, I'll just share my screen. So thank you, everyone. So I think it's an achievement that we were able to do that, because we were struggling to get the codes running. So you should be receiving your codes in a few minutes. What I want us to do is pick up from where we stopped in terms of governance, risk, and compliance. And I know we still have this current week's content to cover. So please bear with me. If I move too quickly, just stop me. And we hope to at least touch on, okay, number one, finish on this content. So what we'll be trying to do is just recover from this week's content. Huh? Great. So 8 of us. I was hoping more would come. If you have your friends, please alert them to join. You can also post in your WhatsApp group and just alert people to join. But we are recording the session, so it will also be embedded in the LMS. All right. So in terms of governance, risk, and compliance, this is a very important area. Many of us as techies, we tend not to be focused on governance, risk, and compliance matters. We are more excited maybe on the technology aspects, but this is one of the very, very important areas, and in itself is a career. So you can actually launch a career as a cybersecurity auditor, cybersecurity officer who basically helps organizations navigate around governance, risk, and compliance issues, GRC. So governance has to do with guiding organizations in the direction, strategic direction they should be taking. It's usually handled by the board of governors in an institution. The board represents the owners or the shareholders of a company, and they protect the interests of those shareholders or the owners of the company, and they give the strategic direction and basically ensure that the vision and the mission of the organization are being upheld. They are the ones who institute policies and mandate what needs to be done in the organization in terms of giving directives, and they receive reports. So there's an ongoing monitoring in terms of whether the organization is going in the right direction. And they set the culture. This is what we call the tone at the top. So if you want to, they say the fish rots from the head, right? If you really want to know the direction an organization goes and the culture it embodies, you need to look at how governance is upheld in the institution. Risk management, we're going to be touching on it next, is all about identifying, assessing, responding to, monitoring any threats, events that are likely to jeopardize the smooth running of the organization and the ability of the organization to deliver on its mandate. And we're going to talk about, so risk management in itself is a whole topic of its own. It's a whole practice. In fact, many organizations have risk departments, risk management departments, with staff members who are focused on addressing risk. And risk is not just at the IT level. We usually say there's enterprise risk. Enterprise risk cuts across the entire organization, and the oversight is around the organization continuing to deliver on its mandate operationally, but also financial, addressing financial risk components, reputation, right? Being able to address anything that may threaten the organization going on in terms of it being an ongoing concern, right? Then there's compliance, and compliance really touches on what are the laws that we need to adhere to, the regulations that have been stipulated, let's say for our sector. If we're a bank, central bank has regulations that govern banks as a, the central bank being a regulator. If it's a telco, there's the Communications Association as a regulator that has set out some specific regulations that must be followed. So when we talk about compliance, really, we're talking about you must comply to laws and regulations. There's also some best practice standards, which we're going to be mentioning in a few minutes. And we're about monitoring, we're about collecting evidence for compliance. We're about due diligence, showing that we're doing the best that we can, given our circumstances, to adhere to comply to these regulations. So we've listed there some of the Kenyan laws that you need to be well versed in. This is not in the Microsoft material, but we've added it here. You guys know about the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. You need to be conversant with that as a cybersecurity professional. It has also elements of addressing critical infrastructure protection. You also need to be well conversant with the Data Protection Act of 2019. Right? You also need to be aware of GDPR. Even though our Data Protection Act is mapped to the GDPR, the international EU regulation, it's good to still be aware and read it and see what it covers, right? There's also the Kenya Information Communications Act, KICA, of 2019, right? There's also the Penal Code, which also stipulates what some of the crimes that are defined there, all right? So as part of your cybersecurity efforts, you need to know what regulations are there, and you must be aware of them and how to comply with them. Some other related concepts that are also brought to your attention in the material is regulations around data residency, where data can be held, where it can be stored, how it's handled and transferred, how it's processed and accessed internationally, right? And these ones would differ depending on the organization and in the areas that or territories or jurisdictions it operates. There's also the element of data sovereignty, and data sovereignty touches a lot on personal data and the laws and regulations around the protection of personal data, because they also stipulate, like the Kenyan government may stipulate in its laws, the jurisdiction where that data can be collected, held, or processed. And let me give an example, because I know this has matured a lot more, let's say for the EU. So one of the things that even service providers like Microsoft have had to do is host data centers within EU because of data sovereignty. Meaning that if you have companies, EU-based companies, you're not, even though you're an American company, you're not hosting their data in the US. You've created provisions with data centers that allow those to be hosted in where? In EU territory, right? So this is something that is very, it's part of the hot discussion, even in terms of, you'll find even African states advocating to have even data centers within Africa because of data sovereignty, all right? Then there's data privacy. Of course, this now has a focus on personal data, and the Data Protection Act, GDPR, sets out rights and obligations relating to handling of personal data. Subjects have to consent. So if data is being collected about me, I have to allow consent for that data to be collected. I have to be asked to agree for that data to be used for specific reasons, and those reasons have to be outlined, right? If there's any change in terms of how that data will be used, it needs to come back again to me to approve. I need to also be given the right to see what data you hold about me. Is that data updated? Is it current? Can I ask that you delete it? The right to be forgotten, you know? So all these things are important, and we're going to be talking about it in one of the sections. Let me just do a quick demo, and we'll be covering this even in when we discuss Priva. And I'm just going to open an incognito window, and feel free, okay, you don't have your codes yet. Let me just demo. When you get your codes, I have two-factor authentication enabled on this account, so I'll have to sign in. Just bear with me for a minute. So even as I log in, just authenticate. So there's a certain level of oops, this thing changes quite fast. The two-factor authentication to log in. I'm deliberately not showing you my screen until I log in. So let me just, okay, so maybe as it logs in, because it's taking a bit longer, let's continue. And because part of the reason I'm saying this is so that we discuss, so I'm just going to, because of time, please look at the risk management element. And even in terms of risk management, there's a resource I've mentioned here, NIST Special Publication 830, a guide for conducting risk assessments. Please have a look at it. What I want to say maybe as a summary is risk is a function, it's a calculation. When you're doing your risk assessment, you're calculating risk based on how likely is the risk likely to take place. And if it takes place, if that negative or adverse event takes place, what impact is it likely to have on the organization? So for example, if we're talking about ransomware, how likely is it that we are going to be hit by ransomware? So maybe you give it a value. Let's say there's a 80%, that's 0.8, that's a 80% likelihood that will be hit by ransomware. All right. If we're hit by ransomware, what's the likely impact? An impact can be measured in terms of a portion of a system that then completely fails or is locked out, and we end up having inability to access that asset. So for example, if we're hit by a ransomware on a server, because again, you do risk assessments per asset. So I'll assess the risk based on a particular asset or platform. So let's say I'm looking at the dangers of ransomware attack. It's likely to hit us 80% likelihood. And we're looking at the assessment for our server. Let's say it's our web server where we are hosting our web applications. If it hits, the ransomware hits and it encrypts our server, we're likely to lose the functionality of the server, possibly maybe 90% of the usability of that server, because the ransomware will lock. What maybe we might try and recover is through our data backups, the ability to restore. So these are calculations you're doing. It's a function. It's a function that will then, based on this, we have a list. So how you're doing risk management, you have a list of likely threat events. And you're assessing these threat events, like let's say ransomware attack, based on also who is likely to do it. Part of your likelihood understanding is also in the context of the adversary, the person, the source of the attack, right? We need to understand the threat sources. We need to understand what events and have a list of them. And then we are thinking of that in the context of a particular system, a particular vulnerability we are assessing. Ransomwares are likely to be taking advantage of a weak protection, a weak control, maybe around anti-malware. We don't have a very good anti-malware system. So we're not just taking the calculation of likelihood and impact without considering the context of whether we have some controls implemented. Now, having said that, we will be ranking and prioritizing our risks, because we don't have infinite resources. We are limited in terms of the number of people we have, the amount of money we have. So even when addressing risk and assessing it, we also need to categorize and prioritize it. And we need to know what we need to tackle first, because it's of a higher threat to our organization, and its likelihood and impact is high, so we need to be able to address it. Now, one of the other slides is when we are able to do that, sorry, I was just checking on the authentication to see whether it had come through. So it's a cycle of listing, identifying different threat sources and events. That's the identify risk. Listing them out and then looking at them one by one, assessing them one by one on their likelihood and impact, all right? But also looking at our current controls and seeing how can we mitigate that risk. Can we implement the controls better? Can we strengthen them better? Can we transfer that risk, maybe engage a third party that is maybe more skilled and ask them to handle that security for us, right? Can we avoid it? So thinking maybe of a project, we have a project we wanted to roll out that is very risky. We've just done our risk assessment and we found it's exposing us a lot. Can we actually discontinue it? If we were in the middle of rolling it out, can we discontinue it, review it, strengthen our security first, and then now deploy it when it's better, okay? But all this then involve continuous monitoring. We need to have an environment where we're collecting logs, we're observing what's going on. So one of the job roles that is being trained on for this training is the security analyst job role. And part of it is because there's a huge demand of people who just monitor what's going on in an organization with the aim of making sure we are strengthening the security in that organization, all right? I won't spend a lot of time on assets. This is just the different resources of value that we are protecting. Kindly just have a look when you look at the notes. A vulnerability is a weakness or a flaw in our system that can be exploited. And you'll be surprised, some of the ones listed there, of course, we know there could be some software bugs, but also poorly trained personnel, that's a weakness. Also poorly configured systems, that's a weakness. An exploit is the technique that is then used to compromise the system, all right? And the attack is when the exploit is actually taking place. That's when the system is being compromised. The actual event is taking place. That's an attack, okay? So it's also important for us to understand that. Now, it's also good for us to understand threats and threat sources and threat actors. So we say that the threats are not only, because in cybersecurity, many of us just jump to the last category, which is the intentional, right? We think our attacks are all just coming from malicious people who just want to break our systems, right? This is often categorized as cybercrime. But remember, there are 3 other categories of attacks. Some of them are unintentional. Your users are just poorly trained, not well informed, and are prone to just taking actions that are going to compromise your system. They have no ill intention. Their motive is not because they want to gain financially. They're just not doing the right thing. So there could be those unintentional risks that must be addressed. As cybersecurity people, we must address and try and limit unintentional, as much as we can, unintentional risks. Another category we don't usually focus a lot on is system failure. So even one of the controls that need to be there, cybersecurity controls involve maintenance actions. We need to also look at the environment, the physical environment, right? Where our equipment is hosted, to make sure that it's the right kind of environment in terms of temperature, humidity, right? Even how we handle the equipment, right? In terms of wear and tear, right? But also systems just will malfunction, right? Yeah, so it's also important for us to consider this. And remember, from our CIA triad, this is going to affect availability of our systems. And that is still something we need to address from a cybersecurity perspective. And then also there's a natural threats. And we've seen that play out a lot, like the floods. We've seen Rift Valley sections collapsing, right? And, portions of land sinking. So even if you're to host a data center, would you really want that data center to really be in Rift Valley? Have you done some proper assessment and you've understood where the fault lines lie? Is there a likelihood of active volcanic activity, flooding, all these things, earthquakes? So all these Yeah, sorry, I just lost power. Are you able to hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Are
Yes,
you
we
guys
can
there?
hear you. Yes.
Okay, so kindly just engage with me. I hope you guys are not doing other things. Yeah, let's be here, let's focus. I was just explaining the different threat categories, but also motivation is important to understand. You need to understand why people are doing what they're doing. What's their aim? What's their objective? What's their motivation? So you'll find that we have different categories of threat actors. When we look at this malicious category, right? We say that some of these are nation states. They are backed up by governments. And their motivation is to manipulate global affairs, geopolitical motives to dominate in a strategic direction, okay? The affairs, international and global affairs. So these people will be very well resourced. They will have backing of their government, very skilled, and they'll have protection, okay, in that sense. And a lot of them do espionage. They are trying to collect secrets. They're trying to get, like you remember during COVID, one of the things that was really a game changer was whether you had the COVID vaccination. How fast your economy or your country got back was whether you were able to vaccinate your citizens. So there was a lot of hacking of pharmaceutical companies. And some of the people who were profiled were actually backed up by governments when they were trying to hack like Pfizer or any of the other companies that had a vaccine, so as to understand the makeup of that vaccine and so that they can now try and reproduce it, right? So that's a different category of person. If you're trying to address a nation state actor in your organization who is targeting you, these people will even try and be they will lie low. They will not even want you to know they're in the environment. They'll be acting as spies. That's a very different profile, like if you compare with cyber criminals whose aim is to just get financial fraud, financial fraud and financial benefits. And that's very different also from hacktivists who just have an ideological stance that they want to advance, or terrorist groups who just want to bring about death and destruction and violence, okay? And that's also different from people who are just for the fun of it, for the lulz, we say, or even insiders who just want to get back at you as an organization because of how they were treated. So this is also important to notice because motivations will also inform how you handle the different threat actors. And you remember, even in this diagram, if I come back to the diagram of risk, how you assess the risk will also be dependent on the person who's targeting you. If the threat source you're looking at is a nation state who is targeting you, the threat profile there is much higher than if you're thinking it's a high school or campus student who's just hacking you for the fun of it. You see? Yeah. Anyway, so, and usually sometimes even like these threat actors, the hacktivists will like anonymous, will post that they are unhappy with a government or a particular person and they are hacking you. So they've already put you on their crosshairs. They're targeting you deliberately. So you need to also evaluate that threat in a different way. It's no longer just general. They've targeted you as an organization and they're attacking you, all right? So related to that is the attack framework. How many of you have heard of the MITRE attack framework? Very, very important, okay? And I want to invite you, as just part of our engagement, if you could kindly just visit mitre.attack. MITRE.org. It's there, attack.mitre.org. And what I want you to do is, first of all, let's understand. So we've talked about these malicious, organized cybercriminal groups, and we might want to study them. So MITRE is funded by the US government. It's a research institution. Some people say it actually started from an MIT, you know, the university, MIT research group. And what they do is they collect a lot of information. Some of it they've released in the public domain, like this particular one, the attack framework is in the public domain, but I'm sure they have a lot more which is not in the public domain. But what they've done is they've studied people, the threat actors, the cyber criminal groups, and they've created a resource that helps explain how they act, how they work. The previous thing we used to refer to was the cyber kill chain. So I don't know how many of you have heard of that term, cyber kill chain, which just basically explained how attackers, the methodology attackers follow when they are attacking you. They'll do reconnaissance, basically understand you. They'll execute some malicious code. When they gain access to your system, they'll try and remain there through persistence techniques. They'll be collecting some data and then they'll be trying to move it out, which is exfiltration, etc. So MITRE has done a more comprehensive outline of the attack framework or the cyber kill chain. And you really want to spend some time and understand this. We don't have enough time to go through it. You'll find, like if I share my screen on the attack, and you can please do this as an activity so that we are engaged. You'll find that number one, you can see the get started, frequently asked questions. You'll see that this is a version updated in April, so it's still very, very current. They've outlined 14 tactics, 202 techniques, 435 sub-techniques. They have studied 148 criminal groups, cyber criminals, and they've evaluated 677 pieces of software, examined 28 attack campaigns, 43 mitigation measures, and 37 data sources. All right. So they have the attack model for the enterprise. So like this one they're showing here is for the enterprise, but they have one for mobile platforms, and they have another one for operational technology. Like this is like the ICS, industrial control systems, and SCADA, basically like where you have sensor-based systems controlled through intelligence connectivity. Now, you see here, the first level is a tactic. So these are the 14 that just describe how attackers, compromise you. They do reconnaissance, they develop, let's say, the malware, they access your systems, they execute the malware, then they try and remain within your system, escalate privileges, defense, evasion, evade any defenses you have. They try and harvest your usernames and passwords and compromise even multi-factor authentication. They try and discover what resources you have in your organization, including cloud resources. They try and move from one place to the other. They try and collect as much of the data and your secrets, intellectual property. They try and set up an infrastructure for command control. Then they move whatever data they've captured. And impact is basically now the final result of all duties. That's where you now feel the impact. And in your risk management discussion, in what we were discussing earlier, so this is now where you feel the pinch, if you can say so, right? Yeah. So impact is eventually on confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? So your systems end up now no longer being available. Your data confidentiality compromised. It's no longer, it doesn't have any integrity. Okay, it's corrupt. your systems are corrupt. So spend a bit of time if you're interested. If I just pick one, let's say pick one on. We pick one on the cloud. I get filtration. So or even let's see cloud infrastructure. I'm just picking at random. So I'm having some challenge on my internet. Can you guys still hear me? Hello?
Paula?
Can you still hear me?
Your voice keeps breaking.
Sorry about that. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it's okay now.
All right, so we won't be able to spend too much time, but let me just come back to the presentation because I'm just seeing time has really gone faster. We'll have to find a way of really catching up. So, but this is important. So kindly spend a bit of time and MITRE use, so the term that is used is TTP. TTP basically says there are some specific tactics, techniques, and procedures that adversaries use, and we can understand them in a lot of detail. This resource is very good in helping you understand that. So I highly recommend that you spend a bit of time on this. I'm just trying to move where there might be better connectivity. If you can still hear me. Hello, can you hear me? You can hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
All right. All right, so tactics are the high level, then each of them will have a specific technique, and I'm just trying to see whether I could demonstrate the techniques. So currently right now, the tactic is on cloud infrastructure discovery. It's under discovery, the technique, and specifically for cloud. And can you see that attackers, when they're trying to do discovery, it lists exactly what they're trying to do. You can see here they're doing it for AWS, and you can see the specific here. So Paku is one of the tools for enumerating what's deployed on AWS infrastructure. There's another one called Scattered Spider. So if you were to look, they've described the tactic. The technique is here, cloud infrastructure discovery, and they're also giving you the procedures. So if you want to see how exactly Paku works, so Paku is the software, it's a tool, you may want to visit this particular procedure description, and you'll see how the technique is executed. In fact, for some of them, you'll even find the code. How exactly there? Sorry, I think I've gone back again. In some of them, you'll even see the commands that are executed, right? So this still comes back again to Paku. I just wanted to see whether you can see the commands. So some of them even will have like, so I invite you to spend a bit of time and, just navigate and look at the different techniques and the tools that are there. Also, let me just say, there's a lot of material on the internet about the MITRE ATT&CK framework. If you're really interested in understanding cybersecurity adversaries and their activities, I would recommend you to use that resource. And there's a lot of trainings online. Different people have hosted podcasts on MITRE ATT&CK that can be very useful. I need to pick up speed so that at least we have some space for doing the registration of our codes. So here, let me also say that there is the element of identity and access control, and that's what we actually wanted to cover today. And identity and access control, and the lab you're going to do is going to be related to that. Now, let me just say, traditionally, we look at identity from the users, okay? Like USIU will be very focused on registering us and giving us our login accounts, like mine is P. Musuva, making sure that we are set up, that we can log in onto our resources and the domain. But please remember, identity is not just the users. Identity is also about devices, registering devices, such that, let me give you an example. If you log into your email account with a different device, if you've set it up correctly and in the current setups, it will alert you that it has noticed you're using a different account from a different device from the one it has been seeing you use, right? And in fact, when we look at the security setup on even, we're going to be discussing Active Directory as our primary directory service on Microsoft. You will find that you can register devices. They can be monitored, like what operating system is it running? Is it patched? Does it have the latest security updates? Does the device have latest security updates? Is the hard disk encrypted? Right? Does it have some anti-malware? Has the anti-malware been recently updated? Has it scanned the device? Even in BYOD, bring your own device policies, you can actually also enforce a certain level of security on people's personal devices if they're using them for work-related, for doing work-related activities. So identity is about also not just identifying users, your employees. It's about identifying the devices they use. It's about identifying the applications, both on-premise and apps on the cloud. And how you go about that is you will actually be specifying which application it is. So for example, if you're running a database management system, SQL Server, you will identify that you're running SQL Server, this version, these particular ports are open, the ports are on this particular machine or this particular server, and you can track the network traffic, and you can even be monitoring which applications you should not, like the ones you expect, and any that you should not expect because they have not been listed in your allowed applications. So you also need to enroll or register the identity of your applications, and also any partnering that you do. And we're going to be talking about federation in the next slide. So let me just talk about that, modern authentication. So give me a second. All right, sorry about that. So just mentioning a little bit about identity. So we've said that, Lorraine, you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. So identity, we've said, is more than just the users. I hope that's clear. We need to manage identity of devices, of applications and services, and even of external. So there's one particular topic in your content of external identities, where maybe you have business partners, or even you want to allow a certain level of access by customers onto your resources, okay? Now, the element of modern authentication is where we are managing, okay, number one, we need an identity provider. An identity provider is a central service from which we are able to, first of all, enroll the different users, devices, and anything that we're going to be managing its identity. We enroll it. We also configure authentication, how we identify and authenticate those entities, what authorizations or privileges we give, and also how we track and how we audit the things that those entities are doing in our systems. Now, that central service that enables us to do these things is what we are calling the identity provider. Now, the identity provider is then what also enables us to push security policies. So if we had some specific policies governing any of these, and also if you wanted to also monitor, have an audit trail, we will be pulling them also from this same identity provider service. In Microsoft, within the Microsoft environment, we all know the very popular platform that enables us to do this. Which one is it? What do we deploy? Are you guys with me? This is the challenge with online sessions. Sometimes I'm not sure people are with you. They could be doing all sorts of manner of things. Lorraine, did you hear the question? Have you guys heard my question? I don't know what's the level of engagement. Do you guys want to answer the question? Anyone who wants to answer the question? Who would like to answer the question? Who is paying attention in class? Yes, Ruth. Go ahead.
Paula.
Yes.
Pardon the question. Sikusikia
Yeah,
vizuri.
you guys are not paying attention. Yeah. So the question I've asked is, what is that popular identity management service that is associated with Microsoft? You can go ahead and answer. I can see your hand is still up, Ruth. All right. Anyway, it's feedback. It's feedback to me as a trainer that you're not engaged. Daisy?
Can I say it's Microsoft Entra ID?
Okay, Entra ID, I'm going to explain what it is, but the one that we've historically always used is Active Directory, okay? So since back to I think 2000. So they in your notes you'll actually see in your notes. I'm not so sure what's what is somebody. Okay. In your notes, you'll see when you go through the Microsoft Learn content, they'll talk a lot about Active Directory and its roots. And it's a service, a directory service. A directory service is basically what allows you to do all these things we've talked about, enrolling identities, different objects, and then managing them, setting policies and deploying those policies. Active Directory has been used ever since they introduced the Windows Server. And the Windows Server, you would enable this service and be able to set up a domain controller. And your domain, like for example, in my case is usiu.ac.ke, that's our domain. And within the domain, we can manage different resources. And you know, the directory service, Active Directory, is able to enable us to do that. Now, of course, now we are in the era of cloud. And when these services were being now set up and we're going to see Entra that has been mentioned, Azure actually called it Azure Active Directory. But that has now been rebranded to Entra ID. And we're going to be examining in subsequent slides, how does Active Directory compare to Entra? Right? And one thing I want you to notice is that Entra is a cloud-based service. You know the way we said infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service? They're actually branding it as ID, which is basically identity as a service. It's a primary identity provider, which will enable you to, can I say, centrally manage identities, merging the on-premise. If you have any Active Directory on your organizational systems on-premise, you can also pull that to the cloud. If you have any cloud-based resources, cloud-based usage, you can also pull it back into that same identity provider service, and you have one central place to do all that. The other thing that is very important, the point I was trying to make is the identity as a service, the cloud-based identity provision, is also single sign-on. So what does single sign-on mean? As an organization, I may be running my own portal, web application, right? I may be running my email system. I may be running, let's say as a learning institution, an LMS. Now, I don't want that you enroll different accounts in all of these different systems. And I may want that you just log in once. You have that one place where you authenticate, and then you're able to access all these other services. That is now what is called single sign-on. Single sign-on. And that's a fundamental component of the modern authentication service. All right. So we've mentioned that Active Directory is one of the ones that we've used ever since for on-premise. Organizations have usually deployed a server for managing their directory services, and that's been Active Directory. And now we're talking about cloud-based identity as a service solution, which is Entra, and we're going to be exploring it. Now, something else I want to talk about is federation. And again, this is covered in your notes. And federation is this idea that we will have situations, and for this one, let me just do a demo. We'll have situations where, let me show you over here. And I'm just going to use a website that I tend to use just to design, just for simple graphics and designing posters and things like that. Let me actually share, because it might have some pop-ups. So if you come to Canva, and this is an example that you'll use for other things, not just only Canva, I don't have to set up a user account on Canva. And one option you usually get is you can use your existing accounts where this list you see here is of different identity providers. So let's say I'm running Active Directory. So you've seen I've selected Microsoft as my identity provider. I'm basically using a service hosted by Microsoft to manage my identity, my username, my authentication, whether it's a password, two-factor authentication, and my privileges and all that, right? And my profile. So instead of having to set up a new account, I can just basically select, I can't remember whether I selected that by default. I just select Microsoft as my identity provider. It notes that I've currently logged in with my Cybershuja account. It's also a Microsoft account. And what it does is it will just pull in my information from my identity service, which is on Microsoft Active Directory, and not have to set up a new identity on Canva. So let me come back again here. And this is something we tend to use a lot. It's just that we don't know exactly, it's now understanding the mechanisms around it. And the idea here is the concept is called federation. So you can see here federation being, I have a web application or a web service that has its own identity service. So like Canva has its own identity service. It has its own way of doing identity and access management. You can enroll and create your own account, build your own user profile, and even how you authenticate on Canva. But what we're saying is with federation, I can believe that Canva has its own domain. And there's another different domain here managed by my organization on Microsoft Active Directory. That's a domain that I've set up. It has me as a user. It has all those things set up on domain B. Now, what I want to do is when I'm logging onto Canva, I don't want to set up a whole new identity. I just want Canva to reference the identity I've already set up on my domain, Microsoft domain, and trust it. Right? So I will authenticate with my Microsoft account, and my profile will be read by Canva. It's a trust relationship. And when I'm authenticated on my Microsoft account, I can prove it with a token. I prove that I have logged in correctly by using a token. We don't see it, it's in the backend. The token is presented to Canva. Canva can verify that, and it will allow me to now access the website using my profile from Microsoft. Now, this trust relationship currently is one way, Canva trusting my Microsoft Active Directory profile. It can also be two-way, all right? But it doesn't have to always be two-way, it can be one-way, all right? So that's the idea of federation. Federation is when we have identity providers managing different domains, establishing trust relationships, and allowing each other to work with the other domains setup. Okay. All right. So something else I wanted to cover quickly, and it seems we will just end up maybe here. I'll just do a small demo on Entra because the topic we were meant to cover was that identity and access management. I'll just do it more as a demo. And in your notes, let me just probably say this. In cybersecurity, we are guided by best practices. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel. And as people who are just starting in the profession, one of the best things you can ever do is consult these best practice frameworks. I've outlined a couple of them. I think we already discussed the PPT framework as the different types of controls. You can have process-based controls, people, and technology-based controls. Please consult our previous presentation because we covered that in detail. What I'd like to mention is that one of the very popular cybersecurity best practice frameworks is the ISO 27000 series. Now, it's called a series because it's a collection of more than one. So probably let me just, I'll pull up the list. It's a list. So if you, and you can do this interactively as well. If you check the ISO 27000 series, I've given you guys a link there. You can visit their website. They have different standards inside that series. So for example, 27001 will give you this idea of what is called the Information Security Management System. ISO 27002 will stipulate in very great detail a catalog of controls that you need to implement. So if you look at these slides, probably I just leave the focus on the slides and we'll just run through them very quickly. You can see here the 27001 will detail, 27002 will give you a detailed explanation of each of these that you see listed here in different sections of that document. It will describe the security policies that need to be in place, the different provisions in terms of how you organize information security, HR components and things like that. So you can just read through that. And these are different controls that you'll be guided on how you need to implement them in an organization. All right. The implementation guidance is in 27003, right? Risk management is in 27005. How you monitor, measure, and evaluate is in 27004. So there's a whole series of documents, and you can consult the standard, and you'll see detailed guidance. Even in terms of their cycle, this is something that's in the ISO, Plan, Do, Check Act, as a continuous way of improving cybersecurity in an organization. And PDCA actually keeps on looping. It's something you do continuously as you continuously improve on the security posture of your organization. Now, the other one I'll direct you to, and we'll be giving you, the ISO one is paid. We won't be able to distribute that, but for the ones that are free, we'll give you a link and we'll upload them on the LMS so that you can also keep copies of them for reference. So NIST Cybersecurity Framework is the other. It was actually updated in February of this year, and it stipulates cybersecurity from these particular domains. Always think about governance. So the new version 2, starts with governance. Then identify what you're protecting through asset management. It lists all these things, even through risk management. You protect by implementing different controls, and it stipulates the different controls, areas you need to implement in detail. You detect by also looking and just doing continuous monitoring for any anomalies and events of concern. You respond immediately. You detect, it actually puts in provisions for incident response planning and different things that you need to do when under attack. And then you recover. And something to note about recover, you're going to a new normal. So yes, you recover your system so that they operate like they used to operate before, but not quite, because remember, if you just go back to the way you were, you're likely to be hacked again. So you've learned your lessons and you've instituted a new normal, which has improved your security posture, making it much harder for intruders to get in again, just the same way they got in. If you're going to work in a bank, there are two standards that you really need to be well versed in, even when you're going for your interviews. That's the PCI DSS, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, and the SWIFT Security Controls Framework. Now, we're going to be giving you copies of this, and I invite you to delve in and have a look at the different requirements. In PCI, there are 12 requirements, and they stipulate exactly what needs to be done. And this PCI DSS is mandatory. You know, the way we mentioned ISO is good to have. Organizations will go for compliance so that they can improve their brand and show that they're secure. PCI DSS is mandatory for anyone who's handling, again, this was instituted by MasterCard, Visa, American Express. There are these major card brands that came together and said, anyone who's handling our cards or card information, sensitive data, must at a minimum have these 12 provisions from a data security perspective. And SWIFT is a platform for banks handling transactions. It's a telecommunication, it's like basically a bank, interbank connectivity platform, and also messaging platform for financial transactions and transfers. It also involves central banks, right? And the member banks are usually anyone who has the SWIFT network deployment, right, for money transfer. So they basically have stipulated a minimum 3 objectives they're looking at, 7 principles and 32 controls that are at a minimum for you to implement as an organization, as a bank, in order to strengthen your security. Of these 32 controls, some of them are mandatory, and some of them they give provisional a window for organizations to over time meet, right, those requirements. And then I want to also direct you to CIS controls, and this one is very important. So currently we're on version 8, and it stipulates 18 controls in very great detail. And you can see some of them we've already come across them, right? Account management, asset management. Account management has to do with identity and access control. And then also others that we've not probably mentioned, like application software security, but they do that in great detail. And something also that is unique with CIS controls, they differentiate organizations even by size, and they call them implementation groups. So implementation group 1 is like for small businesses. What guidance can we give to small businesses in what they can handle, the controls that they need to be really focused on, as compared to large organizations, okay? So they have implementation groups, 3 implementation groups with detailed guidance, depending on what type of organization you are, small, medium, or large, okay? If I just go to that website, because just to show you, that was it for this particular set of slides, right? It's just more of the question and answer over here. And also to say we have a talk at 5 o'clock. So we'll end this session, you'll take a small break, but we have our mentorship session. Do you remember? Every Thursday from 5 to 6, we have our mentorship sessions. So today we will have our mentorship session with, let me just show you that, it's been posted. Lorraine, please confirm that we've posted this on the groups, on the WhatsApp groups. So we're going to be discussing careers. We're building this up on what we had last week. How many of you attended last week's session? Yes, awesome. Abdisalam Hassan, you were there. Yeah, so we encourage you, do not miss. So we're also taking attendance. We're taking attendance on all of this. So we talked about launching into your cybersecurity career in the last session. If you missed it, there's a recording on our YouTube page, the Cyber Shujaa one. At least for the mentorship sessions, we usually open them up. And so that there should be a recording on that. So we're going to be having a session at 5 to 6, but also another session from 7 to 8. So we have 2 sessions. In a sense, we have one specific to your group as the Microsoft ADC beneficiaries, but we'll still continue with the one for the wider Cyber Shujaa group. But we'll also try and synchronize the 2 so that we see whether we can have one and take advantage of hosting the Microsoft engineers, okay? Yeah, so anyway, so we're going to be discussing careers in cybersecurity. Will be led by Irene at 5 o'clock. The link is there. It's the same link we'll be using all through bit.ly ADC mentorship, and you can join at 5. So we'll finish on time so that you can have time to just rest a bit, and then we join. So what I was saying was CIS controls is one of the very important ones, and I'll show you why. I'll show you one of the, so let me quickly share the web page. We're going to also do the demo. Did I open the right link? I'm not so sure. Yeah, okay, anyway, let me just use this same one, but then open CIS control, CIS security, cissecurity.org. So the solutions gives you the CIS security controls. We're going to give you the version 8 download. And the other one I want to really emphasize is the benchmarks. Now, the benchmarks, particularly on security, software security is what we'll focus on, but benchmarks will be giving you best practice configuration recommendations, and the configuration recommendations are specific to specific products and platforms. So let me show you one that I downloaded previously before the session started, and I'll be showing you the, I thought it was open here. And Lorraine, I'll be giving you these ones so that we make them available to the students. So let me just share the right screen. This share function sometimes is confusing, especially if you have many windows open. So this one I downloaded on the Azure, Microsoft Azure Foundations benchmark, and it's the 2024 version. And just to show you, so one of the things that it puts is, number one, the security defaults. So did you see I needed to log in with two-factor authentication? That is built into the security defaults. So Microsoft has upped security by ensuring some things are default, built-in default. So for you to understand what benchmarks looks like is, it will literally give you the step-by-step prescription of things you need to do to configure the feature. So if you're compliant with this benchmark, you'll have already gone to Entra, the properties, security default, and enabled that. All right, and then you save. So do you see how important it is? Like even multi-factor authentication, how you enable it for an account, you select the users, take note of which ones they are that need multi-factor authentication. If you're an administrator, an owner, or a contributor, your account must have multi-factor authentication, right? So you can always, like, you can consult the document. It's like more of like a configurations manual. And you can pull the same, like if you're trying to implement, they have a list of over 100 benchmarks. So even when I picked this one, I had a list of many others. It's just that I never downloaded them, right? But let me just show you how that looks like. And if you want, you can access the same. If you want, you can access the same by registering, which is the window that I had opened before. Sometimes it's confusing when you have multiple windows. I'm just showing you this so that I can put it in to this particular. It has refused, so let me just do it individually. It's okay. So I had already registered and they sent me a link. Now, can you see, if you can see my screen, you can see how to securely configure a Windows desktop running Windows 11, right? You can configure a Debian Linux, and they even tell you which version it is. You know, Amazon, Oracle benchmark for Oracle on Linux, on Red Hat, you see? So the benchmarks are specific for a particular platform, how to configure Windows Server securely. And they have a benchmark for Windows Server 2022, right? Windows Server 2022. right? IIS for web services, even Apache, MongoDB. If you're implementing MongoDB 5 or MongoDB 7, how do you make sure you've configured it securely for security? So the CIS benchmarks are for you to have a minimum level of security on whatever product. And there are many. It's just that I have not picked on specific ones. So if you're implementing cybersecurity, one of the best resources you can ever use is the CIS benchmarks. So I hope that has come out clearly. Now, two things that I was to demonstrate. The first one was on policy. We'll pick up on this later. So I've just logged in with my Azure account on portal.azure.com. And what I've done is, Lorraine, we might not even have time to demonstrate everything, but let me look at the definitions, probably because I've not deployed anything. Nothing, no policies found in a given scope. What's the scope? Scope 0 selected. Let me do this. Let me share a different window. It's because I worked on this particular one with my USIU account. I'm surprised that this particular one is not showing on the CyberShuja one. But the CyberShuja one is a demo. I had set up one for training. You see it's the Azure training, so it's not the. Let me go to Entra. I'll show you. I know this one will work for Entra because I was also showing you the demo for the labs because I was doing the labs beforehand. Let me just share my screen. So I wanted to show you, first of all, the policy features. We'll be exploring this, especially when we look at compliance, governance, risk, and compliance. So if you can see my screen, in terms of definitions, you'll find that there are some pre-built policy definitions for compliance, and those are loading if you just give it a minute. And the policy definitions will be looking to check whether we have set up the resources on the cloud, whether we have set them up to comply to the best practice standards. You've seen me mention a couple of them. The ISO 27000, the NIST, right? There are many others, the NIST controls, the PCI DSS. So you'll find that PCI DSS is listed here. The 12 requirements are listed in a very detailed. So there are over 277 policies that have been inbuilt onto Azure so that they can test whether, if you want to check whether your deployments are PCI DSS compliant, you'll be able to check for compliance on all these policy specifics. All right. So that let's see, like even if it's like on whether you have enforced proper provisions for remote access, you can see this has actually been coded as one of the things it will actually check as a policy rule, whether you have done it properly. Okay. So you can also define. So currently, what are we saying? We are saying that there are already existing policy definitions in relation to industry best practices. For example, PCI DSS, they've already been predefined. And if you enforce that particular policy for your deployment, you will get a score. So if I can come here back to the policy compliance, there's a page on compliance. You'll get a score. Right now, I don't have any resources, but you'll get a score on your level of compliance or non-compliance. So when we get to doing the labs, we will be checking in a very granular way whether our, for example, virtual machine deployment, our database is compliant to the one that we've selected as the policy that we want it to comply. If you come under the definitions as well, You'll see even others. Some of them are even country specific. You'll even see, for example, I saw one here defined for, which country was it? Was it Malaysia? Yes. There's a particular regulation in Malaysia, RMIT, and there are some 208 policies already built in that you can just activate and check whether your resources are compliant. And where your resources are not compliant, you can be able to see some recommendations on how you can remediate. You've seen even 27,000, we've mentioned them. We've mentioned Swift, CSP, right? And here it's even version 2022, which is the latest. PCI, we've talked about. You can even see they have two versions, the older version, the 3.2 of 2018, and the newer version. So you'll even see that they might even have a list of the older versions, just in case you're checking compliance with the older versions, okay? Yeah, so the idea here is you can check your resources for compliance and get recommendations that can help you remediate where you're not compliant. Now, the other demo I wanted to show you, other than the compliance and governance and risk, is the demo around the lab which you're going to do on identity and access management. So this is actually just a test environment, and I created one for just the training that we're doing. And when you follow your labs, once you activate your Azure subscription, you will come here and you will be able to do identity and access management. So what I want to show you is that you can manage, when you start doing the lab, you can manage users. Do you remember what we were saying? The different things that you can manage the identity for, applications, devices, you know, the whole list is here. These options are actually here under your the setup for managing. And remember, this is Entra ID. Where am I? Let me just go back home so that you see how I got there. Entra ID is one of the services. Entra ID. You can either access it from this menu on the left-hand side. You can see Microsoft Entra ID. If you click that, it takes you to this page. It will be for your own account. It's just that I named this Workspace Azure, Cybershuja Azure Training, but you'll now set it up for yourself. In your lab manual, I think it will give you, you know, a different description, but the idea is that you just follow the steps, even though it might be slightly different for the naming, right? Even though the naming is slightly different, but what you'll do is you'll come and set up some users. In the lab, there are 3 users. There's Joseph Prince, the Isabel, etc. You'll also be guided and even some different user settings that you need to set up and things like that. But you see, like here, what are the permissions, you know, and all that. What you'll also need to be able to follow is the creation of groups. In your lab, it will tell you this user belongs to this group. There's a senior admins group, there's a junior admins group, there's a help desk assistant group, and what you'll be required to do is role-based access control. So you configure the users, you make sure that they're in the appropriate group. The groups have assigned permissions. The permissions basically will be allowing or denying specific privileges for the users. And what you'll also be testing in your labs is the ability to enforce some of those security properties. All right. What I want to encourage you is, even though the lab may only restrict you to, the lab will be focusing on user groups for role-based access control, nothing stops you from checking devices, right? Nothing stops you from checking elements to do with maybe, what's the other interesting one? Mobility. Mobility and mobile device management is BYOD. this is like features for bring your own device controls, right? Self-service password reset. That's also one of the other self-service password reset is in your notes. When you look at you see this one actually needs a premium trial. You can activate a trial if you want and just see maybe the full breadth of the features so that you can try them out. Yeah, so anyway, what I wanted to say is that, Lorraine, which lab had you given them? Let me just check. So remember, we're not hiding anything under our sleeves. The labs we're using are from Microsoft. They have a GitHub page for Microsoft Learn. And the first, remember, all of you must do SC 900. That's the first certification all of you must do, regardless of whether you'll be taking the SC 204, which is what you guys are gonna be taking. Yeah, so we're not hiding anything behind our sleeves. And if, for example, so let me just go to, is it under all files or what? Lab 1. I know we'll have to figure out the best way of, Lorraine, I'm not so sure whether we gave them. Okay, just a minute. Let me just show you one of the labs that I know will give you a very good, the one that I was actually doing for role-based access control is, I picked it from actually AZ 500. So Lorraine will just standardize. I'm sorry about that. It's on GitHub. I'll just show you the one I was following for that particular role-based access control. So just let me show you. And Lorraine, I'll just send you the link. So that's the one we're going to be looking at just to demonstrate Entra. So this is the one. Let me just share my screen so that you have a look. I'm sorry about that. So Lorraine, this is the one we are going to use. It will be easier to follow. So you see, we are setting up Joseph Prince and Isabel, and there's another one called Daylan. They all have different roles, and they're assigned different privileges. And you'll actually see how to do setting up of roles using the graphical user interface, but also how to do it using PowerShell, and also how to do it. And you have the commands that you're running and how to do it using Bash, right? And just to show you what exactly that looks like is, and I'm aware time has really gone, and I apologize. I'm trying my best for us to complete this. Where is my first window? It's this one. If I'm able to start spawn the command line. Yeah, so because I didn't have the whatever, I didn't have the subscription. You guys will be able to do this better because I didn't have a subscription. I didn't have an active subscription. In fact, I had to use my credit card. I'm just being honest. I had to use my credit card, my debit card. I'm just having a challenge. Just a minute. Let me try that. Let's see. Yeah, this seems to work. Okay. Let me just share with you what I was doing. So I want to show you where to run the commands. You see, because some of them have a bash or a PowerShell. Can you see at the bottom? So what you do is on your Azure page, you have the shell, the command shell prompt at the top. So you have two modes. You can either use PowerShell or bash. So like if in the example that we were looking at, you need to use a PowerShell command, make sure you switch. So here is where you switch either from PowerShell or from bash. When you're starting off, let me just probably show you the settings. New session. Oh no, not the new session. Sorry. Let me see if I restart. I hope I'm not going to destroy something. Anyway, but when you create it the first time, it will ask you to mount some storage. The reason we are mounting some storage is because you might need to save your commands or maybe some files relating to your configuration. And then when you come to the, now I'm going to share my entire screen so that you see what I'm saying. So it's still reconnecting. Oh my goodness, it took a longer time. So let me see where I am in the lab manual. So like, for example, if it gives me this particular code and I note that this is a bash. So I need to be in bash. This is a bash command. It's even using SED. Bash is associated with Linux. So what you can do, you can just copy over here. And once you copy, you have it in memory, and then you can come and execute it here. So currently I'm in PowerShell, so that's wrong. But you see, it's not even recognizing this as the command. It's going to throw an error. But that's how you can run the commands very easily. Okay, does that make sense? So Lorraine, I'll send you the link because what we're trying to practice this first class is role-based access control, setting up of users, exploring Entra, the different identities and access management. So this one is an easier task to follow than the one that was in the 900. Yeah. All right. And with that, I think it's already 1:15. My goodness. I think with that, we can end the session. I just wanted to do that demo. There's a recording. I thought we could do the subscriptions, but it's already too late. What we'll do is we'll send you your code. Lorraine, we've already sent the code.
I've actually emailed them as well.
Emailed them?
The students.
Yeah, you've already emailed them. So what we'll do, because we have a session at 5 and I also need a quick break before then, we will send you a document with screenshots. So I'm actually gonna follow the process on my side, document it with some screenshots, or Lorraine, you can even try it. So you were there when we were doing the setup. Could you try and do some screenshots of the process? And then we just email them. So just send me, I quickly review, and then we just send it to all of them so that then they can activate their codes, and then we can do assignment 1 for this week. All right. There are no questions. I'm not seeing any questions. I'm not seeing any hands raised. So with that, I think we can end our session. Thank you, everyone, and wishing you the very best. Please make sure you join at 5 o'clock for the mentorship session. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, Lorraine.